Hi guys, so it's been quite some time before we've looked at any products or in fact made a video of any sort at all. Recently got a new car and I've been using the Transcend 200 I think, dash cams, one in the front, one in the rear. A couple of years ago on another new car of my wife, somebody pushed a trolley into the back of the car when she'd had it for 3 days. It was done in a garden centre and then they just buggered off. And you know, that was really rankled because it cost about 400 quid for chips away to come and repair the bumper and the rear wing. So now I've got a new car. I thought, is there a way of filming whilst you're parked? And it turns out that there is. There's some very expensive dash cams, £400–500, that will do that, and then there's a few other cheaper ones that seem to do it to varying degrees. Now the ones I settled for is this FanTrue Dashcam. It's the T2. There's others in the range, but I particularly like this one because firstly it has a connection to the 12-volt cigarette lighter, or you know, whatever you've got in the car, but also it comes with a cable that plugs into the top of the mount, in this case the GPS version of the mount, and that plugs into your OBD socket. Now most cars, well, majority of modern cars have an OBD socket generally in the driver's footwell or underneath the steering wheel somewhere, and it may be covered by a cover, or in my case it is completely accessible just by looking back underneath the steering wheel. Obviously the OBD port has the relevant 12 volts permanent supply and ground. It's where the dealer would normally plug in their diagnostic equipment. So I've already got this set up in the front of the car. We've tested it, and it works pretty well. It is basically recording all of the time when the ignition is turned on, but when you turn the ignition off it will record, I think it's about 5 minutes. I suspect it depends on which setting you've got. It's either 1, 3 or 5 minute loops. So if you've got it on a 5-minute recording setup, it will record for 5 minutes, and then the screen will go off and it will just sit there. Once it has detected movement, it's got a microwave sensor in the top. If you walk past the front of the screen, and you can adjust the settings, it's near, medium and far. I think I've got it on near at the moment, we're just testing it on that setting. But if you walk past the front of the car when this is parked up, there's little orangey red lights that flash in the front to say they've detected the movement, and it will start recording again. Now the only drawback is that it takes a few seconds for it to fire up. So if a car drove past you in the car park, it will trigger this, but you might not necessarily see that car on the recording. Depends on our angle of the road and all sorts of other things. If a car is parking and hits your car and triggers this, then you probably will catch it, because the incident is still going to be going on after a couple of seconds. So there is a limitation to these, because it's not recording constantly. It fires up and there's a couple of seconds delay. Now I did try it in a local hospital car park yesterday, and I've looked at the footage, and as a car's driven past all the parked cars where we were, we have just caught it going out of vision, to the right, because of the very widescreen angle of the lens. But if somebody had walked into the front of the car, or a car had bumped the bumper or something like that did some damage to it, then that definitely would have been recorded. I have the colour, contrast, sharpness, all great. I've played this back on the laptop, and I'm pretty impressed. no issues at all. Can't remember the frames per second, but we'll look that up, because frames per second is also very important when you're trying to capture fine images like registration numbers on oncoming cars when you're both doing 60. The images I caught, probably with a closing speed of 100 miles an hour yesterday, were absolutely fine. You could freeze or pause the film and you could very clearly see the number plates of the oncoming cars. So we've got no issues with any of that at all. So we'll open this one up and we'll just show you what it comes with. And there's other videos on YouTube with all this information, but because I haven't done a video for quite some time, I thought I would make one, and this was probably a worthy candidate. It's nicely boxed, not that anyone's interested in that, and it is usually supplied with the non-GPS mount, and you can buy the GPS mount separately. In this case, this has come from an eBay seller, and in fact I'll probably list the eBay seller because it came very quickly, and it was £109, but that included the GPS mount. So as I said, it's nicely boxed. We have a quick start guide in a couple of languages. We have the well, that was just a follow us thing that's on Facebook and their own website. Share your video and get a free GPS mount receiver. Well, yeah, already got it, so don't need it. And then we've got a user manual as well. Now I did find the user manual slightly different to their online version, probably because I misunderstood. Yeah, now having looked at this again, yeah, it's obvious that you need the two cables. To start with, it seemed odd that we were plugging one cable into the dashboard and then another one going to the OBD port, until I understood its function. So it was just a bit confusing, but that was my fault. The actual manual is quite okay and explains things perfectly okay. And if you register this online, the warranty will go up from 12 months to 18 months, but God knows how you would get that extra 6 months warranty in practice, because they're a Chinese company. There was firmware to update as soon as I purchased this. That's simply done by downloading the firmware onto the SD card and putting it back in the camera and turning the camera on. So we have a little foam insert. This is the main unit. It's quite nice. It's all black apart from the writing, so it doesn't, it's fairly low profile. This is the bit that flashes just here, that little window when it detects movement. I don't know where the microwave emitter is. Maybe, oh no, that's probably a microphone there. Yeah, not sure. We've got some buttons underneath there, and we've also got the serial number under there. So it's all protected with these little screen protectors, and the camera's protected as well. Peel those off. It's a little fiddly to get the SD card, micro SD card into here. This is a quite hard plastic cover, and you need to really get your nail into it before it will open up like so. It's quite hard, and I suspect that plastic will break quite easily if you have to open it up too often. So micro SD, HDMI, and the USB one is the one that is available without moving the cover. Other end it just says T2. Probably would have been nicer if this writing was not there at all, just from a stealth point of view. I just can't imagine somebody breaking into a car for a simple dash cam. It seems a bit, but you never know, do you, these days? A mount clicks in at the top here. The screen is quite nice and clear, very easy to do the settings. There are then two further boxes, and one has the charger and the USB cable, So that is a short USB cable just for plugging it into your computer for updating or downloading the files. That is a very long cable to go into the cigarette lighter. There is a relatively bright blue light on the charger adapter there. I did find this long enough to route all the way around the window and along through the glove box and into the charging point. As I say, that blue light is quite obvious, so if somebody walks by and they see the blue light, they know there's something's plugged in. But yeah, hopefully that's not an issue. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, just blank that off, paint it black, open it up, and remove the LED if you were so inclined. But it's quite nice to see that on. When things are working, it's quite handy. You can walk past the car and see that on. The other thing I found that is a little bit annoying, that when this is on, this just has a very, very dim bluish light showing in here. I would much rather have had a little red LED that flashes when you're driving. It's nice to know this is on, and you really can't see that in daylight when you're driving. The only way around it really is to adjust the screen time out to 0, so the screen stays on permanently. It's not really an issue because you're not you don't need to worry about saving power when it's plugged in and the ignition is on. But yeah, a more obvious way of knowing that it's on and working would have been nice. For instance, my Transcend 200 actually has the screen goes off and then there's a nice bright LED that just sits there flashing, a red LED, so I know that it's working. And I can also look in the rear view mirror and see that the rear dash cam is also working once the screen has timed out. So may adjust that to leave the screens on permanently. So that's that. Next box is the OBD and the original mount. Yeah, this is the original non-GPS mount, and you'll notice that the cable goes into the side. Mounting this on the window is simple enough. Usual rubber or silicone rubber sucker. You put it on like that, and then you turn that around, and that applies the suction. You do have to bear in mind where this goes. If you put it too close to a hard surface above it, you're going to hit that here. It's even more important with a GPS mount. So you'll notice the GPS mount is substantially bigger here and taller, but the mechanism is exactly the same. You apply it like that, and then you've got to turn this around, and then you've got the cable coming out the top. So yeah, really important that you leave enough room above there to be able to lock that in place. And then finally you have the OBD plug. As I say, that simply goes into your OBD socket. I mean, most cars over, if they're 15, 20 years old, probably they're going to have an OBD port. Again, masses of cable. I was able to run that from underneath the steering wheel all the way around the windscreen and straight up into the top of the GPS receiver without any problems. But you can see that problem there when you're applying this. Make sure you've got enough room above the suction cup to allow for this. Now you could download from this just by using the data cable and a laptop. There is no Wi-Fi functionality, so you would have to either remove the card, remove the unit, or plug the USB cable into this and onto your device. So that's what you get. There is a little built-in DC regulator, and that I've put up on the screen on this little sticker, double-sided 3M pad. I think it also has a smart voltage, so it knows if the car battery is too low, and that it really shouldn't be powering the dash cam with it any further. So it's quite smart. And yeah, well, that's pretty much it. Don't know whether to bother plugging it in. I'm not even sure what I could plug it into at the moment because this cable's not really very long. Yeah, I'm not going to bother plugging it in. I'll probably do a video in the car just showing that working. But I can thoroughly recommend these. As I say, the prices on Amazon and eBay vary. Cheapest one I found in the UK was £109, including the GPS mount, which is obviously this one. It all seems very well built. You know, dash cams have come along quite nicely in the last few years. Very happy with the image quality. No problems there. Operation is simple. All the simple functions. Setting up the GPS is just turning it on. Time, date. You can turn the flickering light on and off if you want that to show when there's movement, or if you don't. I think it's a good idea if somebody walks past and then they see the light flickering, they might think twice if they're about to do something stupid. But you can turn it off, and it's all been very, very simple to set up. So yeah, hope that was useful, and we'll do an in-car video and probably some videos of the actual quality that it's going to record at. The only thing I haven't managed to sort out yet, they do mention the software to play the clips back that shows you the GPS position and everything, and I can't find it on their website, so I downloaded a third-party version that did the same, but it had a maximum of 2 video clips before you had to pay and unlock the full version. So I'll do some further inquiries about the software that they say is available, and can't see it written in here now, but it's definitely there somewhere, so we'll look into that. So that's it. FanTrue Dashcam, the T2, and we'll catch you later.